Okay, gentlemen, we got a lot to do today. So we're going to get a little philosophical today, but not too much, because I'm allergic to it. But take a look at what we're Perek Lamed Zayin Pasuk Chaf Beis. Perek Lamed Pasuk Chaf, Lamed Zayin Chaf. What page is it? Lamed Zayin Chaf. Maybe somebody could close that door over there. Gray, can I trouble you to close that door? Thank you. Lamed Zayin Chaf is on page 200. So Yaakov sends Yosef off to the brothers, and on page 202, towards the bottom of the page, the brothers go. They see him from a distance, and they decide to scheme to put him to death. Vayomer ish el achiv. 4 lines to the bottom. Hine bala chalomos halazeba. The dreamer's coming. Ve'ata lechu v'nargeu. Let's kill him. V'nashlicheu b'chara boros. We'll throw him into a pit. Ve'amarnu chaya roa chalosu. We'll say an animal killed him. V'nira ma'yeh chalomosav. And we'll see what will be with his dreams. And Rashi brings down that the Medrash says that they said, let's kill him, and the Ruach HaKodesh said, yeah, well, we'll see what's going to be with his dreams. We'll see who's going to end up winning over here. And the Ruach HaKodesh says that his dreams are going to come out. That's how Rashi brings down the Medrash. Okay. Why did the brothers want to kill him? I mean, you're not talking about murderers. You're talking about people on an extremely high level. You're talking about the sons of Yaakov Avinu. Why would they want to kill him? And the commentaries explain that they judged Yosef as a pursuer. Because Yosef, according to Noachide law, based on what he said they were doing, then they deserve death. Besides the fact that they're worried that he's going to become the king and he's going to want to kill them. So they have a lumdus, right? They come up with a, he's a pursuer. He's a pursuer. And therefore Yosef has to be taken out. So, Vayishma Reuven, Vayatzileo miyodam, Reuven saves them. He hears the plot. Vayomer lo nakenu nefesh. Reuven says, we're not going to kill him. We can't kill him. Vayomer aleim Reuven, al tishbechu dam. Don't actively kill him. Hashlichu oso al abor hazeh asher b'midbar. Throw him into the pit. V'yad al tishlechu bo. Don't set your hands against him. And why did Reuven say this? Leman hatzil oso miyodam lashivu al aviv. Reuven was hoping they'll put him in a pit, and then when nobody's paying attention, Reuven will go back and get him, and he'll bring him back to Yaakov Avinu. Now Reuven understands that number one, he's motivated because he feels he should be killed. But Reuven's got another concern. Reuven's the firstborn son. If Yosef is being chosen over here, who's got the most to lose and who's got the highest motivation to kill him? So it's Reuven. So who's going to get blamed? Reuven's the one who's going to get blamed. So Reuven says, listen, I can't have a situation like this where even if he deserves to die, but I'm the one who's going to get blamed for all this because I'm the firstborn and clearly with the most motivation because I have the most to lose over here. So Reuven wants him thrown into a pit, and Reuven's hoping that he'll go double back to the pit, take Yosef, I'll bring him home, and let's put an end to all of this. That's what Reuven is hoping for. There's a major discussion here, gentlemen. I'll hold all questions for a couple of minutes. There's a major discussion over here. What Reuven was really saying was like this. We know that human beings have free choice. Animals do not have free choice. Now we're going to see that this pit has snakes and scorpions in it. There's a discussion whether the brothers even knew it. There's one opinion that they checked the pit and they made sure there's no water, there's nothing in the pit. And they're blamed because they should have gone down into the pit to make sure there are no little cracks and crevices where reptiles could crawl out of. That's one opinion, that they didn't see the snakes and scorpions. There's another opinion that they did. In a pit, in the desert, in the hot weather, even if you don't see it, there's likely to be something in there. And Reuven's plan, he's saying to the brothers the following. Human beings have free choice. If we kill him, it could be we're using our free choice and we're not justified in killing him. Animals will only kill. Animals don't have free choice. Animals only kill if Hashem sends them to kill. So let's put him to the ultimate test. Let's put him in the pit. If he deserves to die, the snakes will take care of it. And if he doesn't die, that means he doesn't deserve to die, and the snakes won't kill him because God won't let them kill. So Reuven is saying, now watch how the wording works over here. Don't ask the question yet, Mayor. We're going to get to it. Okay? He says, Vayomer Reuven, al tishbechu dam. Look at the pasuk at top of page 204. Hashlichu oso el abor hazeh asher b'midbar v'yad al tishlechu bo. Don't set your hands in. Leman hatzil oso miyadam. to save Yosef from their hands, because they are people with free choice. Lahashivo al aviv, and to return him to his father. But which father are we referring to here? Meaning his father in heaven. Let's put him under God's direct jurisdiction, then see what happens. That'll be the ultimate test. That's how the commentaries understand it. Now there's a major debate here. And the debate is like this. You know that on Rosh Hashanah, God decides whether somebody's going to live or die. Okay, let's say he decides Reuven is going to live through the year. Can Shimon then pick up an AK-47 and kill Reuven? Because after all, Shimon has free choice. Can Shimon use his free choice to override God's decree? God decreed Reuven should live. On Rosh Hashanah, he sealed him in the book of life. Shimon has free choice. Can Shimon then pick up an AK-47 and kill Reuven, overriding God's decree? Obviously within God's framework of running of the world, but does God allow the running of the world? In other words, nothing's beyond God. Nothing's beyond God. As a matter of fact, there was a book that was written. It's one of the biggest selling books in history. I think it's now the number 3 seller. At one point it was the number 2 seller, which was Why Bad Things Happen to Good People, written by Harold Kushner, who was a Reconstructionist rabbi. So in his book, Rabbi Kushner suffered a devastating personal tragedy. He had a son who at 8 years old developed something called rapid aging disease. There's a fancy medical term for it, but rapid aging disease is there are no symptoms other than the 8-year-old starts to age rapidly, and by 12 years old he looked like an 80-year-old man and he died. And Rabbi Kushner then wrote this book, Why Bad Things Happen to Good People, and his theory in the book, which is completely contrary to Torah, is that God runs the good in the world, and anything bad is random and haphazard. It could happen to anybody at any time with no rhyme or reason. That's his theory in the book. We're not judging him on a personal level. He suffered a terrible tragedy, but the book itself is apicorsis. That's heresy, because God controls everything, controls the good and the bad in the world. That's one of the reasons that we put salt on all offerings in the Beis Hamikdash. They used to put salt, because where does salt come from? Salt comes from the sea. Yet salt carries. If I asked you for 2 opposites, what would you say are 2 opposites? The first two forces that cannot coexist. What would you think of? Fire and water. Fire. I know you're going to say men and women, but they. And by the way, Kabbalistically, one is so the women are fire, men are water, right? And it's a miracle that they coexist. But the what do you call it? The salt represents, since it comes from the sea, which is water, yet it carries the characteristic of burning. If you put salt on something, it can burn through. So it's got fire and water in one element, and that's why he goes on the Mizbeach to show that God controls all. He controls the opposites. He controls anything good in the world and anything bad in the world, which is why ultimately even the bad things that happen are for the good. That's why I say Gamzu Latova. This Rabbi Harold Kushner, his contention was that God does not. The bad happens outside of God's jurisdiction. That's complete heresy. Here, what Reuven is saying, and what we're saying is, the question is, can Shimon, in the way God runs the world, where he makes a decree, somebody's supposed to live through the year, but is it left to Shimon now, his free choice, that he can actually use his free choice and override that decree? So that is a very, very big debate. Interesting question, right? The Orach Chaim HaKadosh, on this pasuk, based on this pasuk, he says yes. You see it from this pasuk. Because Reuven was concerned that if he leaves them in the hands of people who have free choice, then they can use their free choice to actually override a decree where Yosef doesn't deserve to die and they kill him. The Vilna Gaon and the Sefer HaChinuch clearly indicate not like that. I mean, if he doesn't deserve to die, so then Reuven, then Shimon with his AK-47, either it'll jam at the last second, or he'll have a heart attack and drop dead, or the bullet will ricochet and not, something will happen, or it'll hit his Tehillim in his pocket. One way or another, he's not going to die. That's what the what do you call it? The other view. As a matter of fact, I gave last night. I was my friend who was in this terrorist attack at the central in Yeshivat Shaul. As a friend of mine, I gave him a ride last night. We were in a cab together. So here's a guy who, guy sets off a bomb, and by all rights, he should not have survived it. He's still got screws in his body. He's got about 8 or 9 screws on the left side of his body, which they haven't decided not to take out surgically. because the surgery itself is no fun. He's got one screw in his abdomen, which did not injure any internal organs. It bruised the diaphragm without tearing the diaphragm. If it would have torn the diaphragm, then they would have had to do an emergency surgery. And it bruised the diaphragm, and the doctors they've decided not to take out the screw right now, because anyway, the surgery is dangerous, is not dangerous, but the surgery is, it's risky. But even more than that, what's remarkable is the chief surgeon said, what's the concern? Obviously, if there's a screw inside, they could cause an infection of some sort. The chief surgeon said the heat of the explosion sterilizes the screws. So there's no danger of infection. How do you like that? Now, how do you like when you talk God's immediate intervention in man's affairs, right? There's a guy gets a bomb, he gets exploded, he gets screws in his stomach, and yet the screw just barely missed everything. Is bruised the diaphragm and doesn't have to be removed right now because they're hoping that it'll come out naturally because there's no danger of infection. How do you like that? So, and by the way, the guy was there, he said there was an off-duty ambulance who heard the explosion. The guy's off duty. He heard the explosion and he figured, listen, there's an explosion. He was there within 20 seconds, except that it was only the driver. He didn't have any medics with him, any paramedics with him. The chief paramedic of Magen David Adom happened to be right across the street. So he came running over. They got to this guy within 20 seconds. And within 8 minutes, he was in Shari Tzedek Hospital. Wow. Right? So so you're wondering. So the Vilna Gaon, his contention, and the Vilna Gaon and the Sefer HaChinuch, which is a Rishon, they're of the opinion that nobody could override God's decree. And the Sefer HaChinuch, based on that, the proof is because the Sefer HaChinuch says you're not allowed to take revenge. Now, why can't you take revenge? What's wrong? I mean, revenge. There's an expression, sweet revenge. Right? What's wrong with taking a revenge? A guy, messes you up in business. So the next thing, I'm going to mess him up in business. Why can't I? What's wrong with taking revenge? So Sefer Chinuch says, because when you take revenge, what you're showing is you don't believe it's coming from God. You believe that the person is the cause of your trouble. And nobody could cause you trouble if not for God sending him. You understand? So when you take revenge, that's why even Paro's punished. Why is he punished? The Jewish people had to suffer anyway. God said that already to Avraham Avinu long before they ever got to Egypt, that they're going to suffer for all those years. Why is Paro punished? The answer is if it wouldn't have been Paro, it would have been someone else. But who told you to volunteer to be the guy? Well, if I hit the guy, well, obviously God decreed that I should hit him. Somebody, he's got to get hit, so I hit him. Yeah, well, who told you to be the one? Who told you to be the one to carry out God's decree? Let someone else carry God's decree. I told you my brother once pulled that on me because I told you my brother was eating an orange or something. And when I came up behind him and I flicked his ear real hard. He needed flicking. So I flicked his ear. Not now. He's a rabbi now, and so am I. So we don't do it too often now. This is back when we were kids. So I flicked his ear. So he got up and chased me around the house, and he had me backed up in the corner. I'm a chicken. I was running away. So he had me back up in the corner, and he had his fist up. And I said, you can't hit me. I decided to appeal to his religious sensitivities. I said, you can't hit me. He said, why not? I said, because it's revenge. I said, it's not revenge. I'm starting from new. And then he proceeded to bruise me. Right? So yeah, you can't start from new either, by the way. Right? That's also not, just because it's not revenge doesn't mean you're allowed to do it. Right? And it was 100% revenge, but he wasn't very concerned at the time. The point is that's a machlokas. There's a dispute here. We generally go with the second opinion. We generally go with nothing can happen to you if it's not been pre-decreed. The Gemara says a person does not stub his toe unless it's been decreed in heaven. Now, if you're walking around with bare feet on a gravel and a rocky, stony area, don't go blaming God, right? But if a person's walking around with regular shoes and you happen to be walking on a sidewalk and you go smack your foot on something, in other words, if you're behaving responsibly in life, then it's all coming from God. If you're irresponsible, don't blame God. Don't blame God. Sometimes people they confuse bitachon with irresponsibility. right? That's if you're irresponsible, if your hair is wet and you run out in sub-zero January weather with wet hair and no shirt, and then you have developed pneumonia, well, it must be bashert. It's not bashert. It's not bashert. It means you were dropped on your head as a child. Don't blame Hashem because of your foolishness. But if a person is behaving normally, regularly, and something happens, that's the approach we use. Now, Rav Dessler explains it. He kind of makes, it's a very complicated explanation, but in simplified terms, what Rav Dessler says is, since God, how do you reconcile it? How do you reconcile Shimon's free choice with the decree on Reuven? So Rav Dessler, in simplified terms, as much as simplified means it's to the extent that I understand it, Rav Dessler says that since God knows in advance what's going to happen, he puts the person who deserves to get shot in front of the person who he knows is going to be using his free will in that direction, since God knows how everything's going to unfold anyway. So since he knows that one day Shimon is going to choose to shoot someone with an AK-47, he puts Reuven in front of Shimon because Reuven deserves to get shot. That's the explanation. Okay, you have to speak to Rabbi Gottlieb or Rabbi Bredowitz to get all these things clear, because I can't tell you more because I don't understand more. And frankly, between me and you, it doesn't really matter to me because there's no nafkamina. Because the nafkamina is that I have to do and behave responsibly and take all normal precautions. A person, it says in Pirkei Avos, Al tehi vaz l'chol adam, don't disparage any person, ve'al tehi maflig l'chol davar, and don't distance anything, meaning don't be reckless about anything. She'ein l'cha da'adam she'ein lo sha'ah, there's no man who doesn't have his moment. There's nothing that doesn't have a function and a purpose. In other words, you can't look at a bug and say, what purpose does that bug serve in the world? Right? What purpose does that bee serve in the world? And certainly human beings don't look at a human being and say, well, what use is this human being? Because every human being has his moment in the sun. Everybody has. There's nobody who doesn't have his moment. So I always think of it whenever I read that Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. I think of myself in high school, and in our senior year in high school, we're playing for the championship. Basketball, playing for the basketball championship. In our league, we're playing for the basketball championship. So we're playing this other team there. There's some bad blood. And there was one guy on our team. One guy wanted to be on the team all 4 years of high school. He wasn't good at shooting, dribbling, passing, rebounding, or anything else that qualifies you to be on the team. So senior year, we put him on the team and let him sit on the bench with his uniform. He was happy to have a uniform. He almost never played. The last game, we're playing for the championship, and we were getting absolutely demolished. It was the first time that I ever asked the coach to take me out of the game. We were getting killed. We were down by about 40 points in the fourth quarter, and there were a few minutes left in the game. And I just said, get me out of here already. It was just from the beginning. They just blitzed us. It was just, and they were laughing at us. They were having a good time at us also. They were letting us. They were really yeah. They were very unpleasant about it. So finally, with about 2 minutes left, the coach puts this guy into the game. The guy was just not very coordinated. The coach puts him in the game, and he's got to inbound the ball from under our basket. We're down by 40 points. There are 2 minutes left of the game. So the jerk from the other team starts jumping up and down to block the inbound pass. 40 minutes up, 40, and he's really, he's jumping up and down. So this guy winds up to throw it all the way down court, right? And this guy's 2 feet away from him, and the guy's not very coordinated. And we're sitting on the bench like this. We're just like, let's get out of here already. So the guy, he winds up, and he throws it with all his might, just as this guy jumped up, and he caught him right on the pin, right on the chin, with a full force. And I remember the guy just got carried back and fell over. That was the other. We jumped up off the bench, like, yeah. And I remember because this guy who inbounded, he's like, what happened? He's looking around. Well, what did I do? What just happened? So whenever I read that Mishnah in Pirkei, and he wasn't good socially, he wasn't good academically, he wasn't good at anything. And I just remember that Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that every person has his moment. So we mobbed the guy afterwards. Right, wow, you nailed him good. that was the only highlight of the game. I just remember this guy going back. This guy went back like somebody just shot a deer. He just got hit, kaboom, right on the chin. He nailed him. He just carries it back. So you can't. What do you call it? That's the first part. The second part of the Mishnah says there's nothing that's purposeless in life. You can't write off And the commentaries say, if there's something you should be concerned about a danger or something that's a potential hazard, don't say, well, Hashem will protect. That means that you're behaving irresponsibly. So if a guy says, well, they say you're a redneck. You're a redneck if you got a relative, and his last words before he died were he said, "Hey y'all, watch this!" Right? And so there, and then he goes and does something. He goes swinging on a rope or a chain that's not really fast. So you can imagine such a thing. So for a person to go and do something foolish, right? A person to go do something foolish. My mother was a nurse. She worked in Chicago Rehabilitation Institute, which is people with what do you call it? Quadriplegics and paraplegics. Chicago Rehab is a well-known rehab. She had a professional football player. Darryl Stingley was there. He's the guy who got paralyzed in the NFL. And she had, my parents actually, one day my dad bought a motorcycle. I was 17. He bought a motorcycle, Kawasaki 100 motorcycle, and it was winter. And I used to take this motorcycle, and I used to ride it up and down the alley, and I kicked that baby up to about 10 miles an hour. Up and down the alley behind our house. I'd go with this motorcycle, and it was winter. In summer, I was supposed to go get my motorcycle license. And between winter and summer, my mother started working as a nurse in Chicago Rehab. And then one day I came home and saw 17-year-olds with spinal injuries from motorcycle accidents. Oh my God. And then one day I came home, and guess what? The motorcycle be gone. Yeah. Then nobody asked me about that. That Kawasaki disappeared pretty quick. So she told me she had a guy there in the rehab who had jumped into a lake. He dove headfirst into a lake, and he hit a rock, right? So most people diving into a lake, they think, it should be okay. There's a precaution to take over. Just take the precaution. Don't be foolish. Don't go doing things that you think, well, it should be okay. That's what the Mishnah means. That's what the commentaries say in the Mishnah. Maflig literally means don't distance it. Don't distance the danger and say, it'll be okay. Distance the danger. It's not going to be okay. I remember once we were on a Yeshivat Ohr Somayach. We went up north, and we're on this Yeshivat with Rabbi, and there was as we were hiking, we came to like a big water hole, and there's a ledge behind it, and guys went up this ledge and started jumping off this ledge into the water hole, right? And I was just like, whoa, it was a long jump. These guys are jumping from 20 feet down into this water hole. And it was hard. They were all okay, but I was just, and then we're watching them go. Guys from the program, they're going up this ledge. I climbed the mountain, standing on a ledge and jumping down into this water hole. I was not a happy camper, but these guys were doing it. There was one guy in the program who was like into martial arts or something, tremendous concentration. And this guy goes walking up, he climbs up to even a higher ledge. And this guy must have been 30, 40 feet off the ground, and he just, with pure, just concentrated. I mean, I would have passed out. And this guy just walked up there, just concentrated for a second, and he went, like a torpedo. And it was hard to watch because that's, okay, so they said there's nothing there. It's like, I don't know, maybe there's one rock there. I don't know, it's not that's what the Mishnah is talking about. So here you have a major debate about whether it is, and that's why Reuven puts him into the pit. According to the Or Chaim. It's a way of taking him out of the hands of the Balei Bechira because the Or Chaim is of the opinion that someone can use his free will to override the decree. That's what the Or Chaim says. Okay. So Yosef arrives, and they take him in the pit, and you take a look at Pasuk Chaf Daled. Vayikachuhu vayashlichu oso habora, 5 lines from the top. Vehabor reik ein bo mayim. The pit is empty, there's no water there. And the Gemara in Shabbos says, well, obviously there's a redundancy here. Why is it redundant? If it's pit, if it's empty, there's obviously no water. So the Gemara says, Bor reik ein bo mayim. You're right, there was no water, but there were snakes and scorpions. That's why it's emphasized. There's no water, but there are snakes and scorpions. Why specifically in a pit full of snakes? Because the Gemara compares somebody who speaks Lashon Hara to a snake. The Gemara says a snake bites people and gets no pleasure. And the Gemara says that in the future, They're going to call out the animals. They're going to call the snake, and they're going to say, a lion kills so that it could eat, right? There's another wild animal kills so that it could eat, that it could eat the prey. You bite and you go net pleasure out of it. Why do you bite people? That's what it says in Gemara. They're going to ask the snake in the future, why do you bite people? You get no pleasure out of it. And the snake says, what about somebody who speaks Lashon Hara? Somebody speaks Lashon Hara. Gemara says, so we see from a person who speaks Lashon Hara is fitting to throw him to the snakes. Suitable to throw him to the snakes. Because there's no pleasure in Lashon Hara, even though we obviously enjoy gossiping. But there's no physical, tangible pleasure in speaking Lashon Hara. It's just a sign of internal rot. And that a person should be able to overcome. It's just somebody who needs to speak Lashon Hara and gossip. It's just a sign of internal rot. There's actually a story circulating in Israel probably going about 10, 15 years ago. There was a woman who was known as a balas Lashon Hara. A balas, an incessant gossiper, gossip monger, and Lashon Hara speaker. And eventually this woman died, and they buried her. And one of the members of the Chevra Kadisha realized that he's missing his wallet. And he stopped and thought about it, and he realized that when they were bent over putting the body into the grave, his wallet must have fallen out of his pocket into the grave. So he went to a Rav to ask a pasuk, because the halakha is you don't open a grave afterwards. Once the grave is closed, you don't open graves. So that's their extenuating circumstance. So he went to a pasuk, and the Rav told him that if you're pretty sure that it's in the grave, you could open it very quickly, take a quick look, and see if your wallet is in there. So the guy goes to the graveyard, and he opens up this woman who spoke Lashon Hara. He opens up her grave, and he looks in, and he sees that there are 3 thick snakes in the grave, wrapped around the body, squeezing as hard as they could. Right? Yeah. So whether he found the wallet or not, I don't know. But he sees these snakes squeezing the body. So Chazal say somebody who speaks Lashon Hara is fitting to throw. I told that story to my kids, like a bedtime story. They haven't spoken Lashon Hara in 20 years. And if they ever do, I just say squeeze. So what do you call it? Again, I'm not making any claims. I'm only telling you what the story was. Right? It could be the other bodies have snakes. I don't know. All I'm telling you is, so that's why Chazal emphasized that he's thrown into a pit of snakes. Now watch this. You're going to love this. Vayeshuvu lechol lechem, they sit down to eat bread, and they're taken to task for this, by the way. That the brothers sit down to eat, there's a halacha where on a day that Beis Din executed somebody, Beis Din's not allowed to eat. The day that Beis Din executes, they're not allowed to, you have to fast the entire day. To go dump them in the pit and then go and eat, and sit down and eat, which is obviously a way of them showing themselves we have a clean conscience over here. So they go down, they sit down to eat, Vayisu einehem, they raise their eyes. Vayiru v'hinei orchas Yishmaelim ba mi-Gilad. A caravan of Yishmaelites are coming from Gilad. Ugmaleim nosim nechosu tzri velot. They are carrying, what did I translate? Spices, balsam, and lotus. Right? Not sure what lotus is, right? But whatever it is, they're carrying these. What is it? Is it?
It's like it has opium in it.
Oh, nice. We'll talk afterwards. The nechosu tzri velot. Holchim lahorid Mitzrayim, and they're on the way to Egypt. Now, here, Rashi brings down, you should be bothered by something here. Before you even look at Rashi, something should be bothering you. Something should be bothering you before you even look at Rashi. Like, who cares? Mm-hmm. Oh, there's a caravan of Ishmaelim, and they're carrying spices and balsam and lotus. Right? Okay, a bunch of morphine-addicted Yishmael. Why are you telling me this? Is this really a crucial part of the story over here? So Rashi says a very strange statement. Take a look at Rashi. You're going to love this. Rashi says, where is it? Here. It's on the right column of Rashi. Right? Left column. Right column, sorry. Ugmaleim nosim, right column of Rashi, 5 lines from the bottom. Right column of Rashi, 5 lines from the bottom. Ugmaleim nosim. Says Rashi, Lama pirseim hakosuv es masa'am. Why did the Torah go and tell us what they're carrying. Answers Rashi. And again, this is Rashi's quoting the Medrash. Lehodia matan schoran shel tzadikim, to let us know the reward of the righteous. She'ein darkan shel arvim loses ela neft ve'itron sherechan ra. Normally they would carry crude oil and tar or something, which smells terrible. V'lozeh nizdamnu b'somim. For Yosef, they happen to come along with spices and fragrances. Shelo yuzak mireach ra, that he shouldn't be harmed by the bad smell. Nothing bother you about that? I got news for you. Yosef is being thrown in a pit. He's being sold. The Medrash says they were beating him, they were cursing him, not the brothers, the Ishmaelim. He's being ripped away from his family, sold to who knows where. He's got much bigger problems than how the room smells. That is not the biggest issue in his life right now. Right? Oh, good, Yishmaelim. Well, they're wearing deodorant. What a great day to be kidnapped. You know, this is not the biggest issue in Yosef's life right now. And the Torah is like, ooh, look at this, for he's a tzaddik, so he's a good smell. Such a tzaddik, so why is he being kidnapped and sold if he's such a tzaddik? Why is that happening to the tzaddik? And he is a tzaddik. So why does the Torah emphasize, oh, but it smells good? You know, what a wonderful day for a kidnapping. I guarantee you, Yosef would much rather be in a bad-smelling wagon on the way home than in a great-smelling wagon on the way down to Egypt, right? What is the Torah telling you over here? So there are two approaches. There's one approach is one is Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, that's all, and one is the Stiplers, that's all. I don't remember which one is which. One of them says, I think the Stipler says, that, and this connects to Hanukkah, by the way. One of them says that we learn from here, you know, when a person is going through a difficult period, a person is going through various sufferings, we tend to think that it's just one blob and one mass of suffering. And the Torah is teaching you over here, just like my friend with the sterilized screws, that every degree of the size is measured to the nth degree. That means he has to be beaten, he has to be sold, he has to be kidnapped, but he doesn't need a bad smell, so he's not going to get the bad smell. It's measured to the nth degree. That's the idea. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not random and haphazard. The Torah is teaching you it's all measured precisely, number one. Number two, it's even more than that. Imagine the following. Imagine guy's driving to a wedding. He's wearing a three-piece suit, his sharpest suit, and he's driving to a wedding, and all of a sudden on the highway, there's a boom, 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 there's a flat tire. Oh, darn. He gets out of his car, and the instant he gets out of his car, it starts raining. Oh, boy. So he bends down to fix the flat tire, he splits his pants, right? Starts working on the tire, and the tire gets grease on his beautiful suit, right? This is not going well. But he happened to leave the radio on in his car, and the radio is playing his favorite song, right? The radio, all of a sudden out of the clear, the radio, while everything is going on, the radio should have been, if the pattern would really be consistent, it should have been rap, right? Right? Because that's worse than anything that's happened so far, right? And instead, here's a Beatles song. You know, what happened over here? What happened over here? The answer is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is delivering a little message. It's a little message. And this is why it's called the message for the tzaddik. He's saying, while this is all happening, it would be very, very understandable if the thought flitters through your mind, God has abandoned me. God's abandoned me totally. Look what's happened to me over here. My own brothers are kidnapping me, throwing me, selling me, goodness. God's abandoned me totally. Now, Kodesh Baruch Hu sends one little message. Take a whiff. Ooh, Lotus. Right? Oh, my favorite. Lotus. Me and Ezra. Lotus. Oh. Right. What's the message? The message is, I haven't abandoned you. I've got it all under control. I'm running the show over here. That's the message. The message is none of it's random. I've got it all under control. There's a rhyme and a reason for this. There's a plan over here. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends you this plan. Let's go to Hanukkah for a second. We're coming to Hanukkah. A very strange thing. Why on Hanukkah? You know, there are two things happen on Hanukkah. We celebrate two things. This is all connected. And there's no coincidence that we read about Yosef on Hanukkah. This Parsha, next week's Parsha, it's all connects to Hanukkah. On Hanukkah, there were two miracles. There was the victory over the Greeks, and there's finding that little pach shemen. Now, between me and you and the wall, you know, I like oil as much as the next guy. And sufganiyot are, we eat oily food to commemorate the oil. And I told you sufganiyot, the little jelly donuts, are the ideal miracle food because you eat one and it burns inside for 8 days, right? So it's the ideal miracle food. And you eat latkes and you eat all the, okay, terrific. I like oil as much as the next guy. But ultimately, what would you think, survival in a war versus finding a little bit of oil, which one is a more significant miracle? I would say survival is definitely more, instead of burning 8 candles each night, we should burn, every night, burn a Greek. Take a Greek. I don't know where you get them. I don't know exactly how cooperative they're going to be. Take a Greek, put them in your window, and set them on fire. And get the next night, take 2 Greeks. I don't know exactly how it would play out, or get a Greek symbol or something. I don't know. Why is it that we're commemorating the oil? Why the oil? The answer is that there's an epic battle between Dovid HaMelech and Goliath, Dovid and Goliath. So the Jewish people are on one hill and the Plishtim are on the other hill, and Goliath, who is 6 amos in a zeres, which is a little over 10 feet tall. You always got chosen first in basketball. And he's about 10 feet tall, and he's armed to the teeth, and he's taunting the Jewish people for 40 days, blaspheming God. And Shaul HaMelech, King Shaul, makes an announcement that anybody who goes out and defeats him will be rewarded. He gets to marry the king's daughter, which is always a good thing. The king's beautiful daughter. It's always a good thing. So Goliath goes out there, and everybody's intimidated and scared. Comes along this little shepherd boy, Dovid HaMelech, comes along and says, yo, what's up? And he takes a look, he says, he's intimidating us. He goes out there with his, what do you call it? And he comes and Goliath says to him, what, you're fighting me with sticks and stones like a dog? And he says, I'm fighting you with the aid of God. And he takes one shot and he nails Goliath in the forehead. There's one opinion that the stone was embedded so deep, the stone killed him. Then he pitches, he falls. Now here's a question. A guy who got hit with that kind of force, almost like getting hit in the chin with a basketball, right? A guy who gets hit with a stone that could kill you. There are 3 choices. Either he should fall backwards, he should collapse on the spot, or pitch forward. Which is least likely? Pitch forward. Yet it says he fell forward. And he fell right at Dovid's feet. And Dovid took out the sword and he chopped off his head. Okay, now, why did he fall forward? So the Medrash says, you know why? To save Dovid HaMelech, it was a miracle, a nace. To save Dovid HaMelech 12 paces. 12 paces is about from here to that wall. Because instead of being inconvenienced, they have to go all the way there to chop off his head. So he fell right at his feet. I love when that happens, right? He fell right at his feet, and he could take out the sword and chop off his head. I understand. Yeah, that was a miracle. Why was this miracle necessary? Dovid HaMelech would have been more than happy to go. He's now killed the bad guy. He's a national hero. He's going to marry the king's daughter. It was a beautiful day for a head chopping. Dovid HaMelech would have been glad to dance over to the wall, say some Tehillim bees, David, crunch, right? It would have a great day for a head chopping. Right? So what does Dovid HaMelech have? He needs to fall at his feet. You need a miracle like that. So the commentaries explain, you see, there was a miracle done for the entire Jewish people. The entire Jewish people had a miracle done. How does HaKadosh Baruch Hu show that Dovid HaMelech, they're all good, but he's special? How does he show that Dovid HaMelech occupies a special status? He gets his own private, personal little miracle. Completely unnecessary. But he falls at his feet. That's to show Dovid HaMelech is special. You're all special, as George Orwell might have said. All Jews are equal, right? But some are more equal than others, right? So if David HaMelech, he falls right at his feet, it's a special little miracle to show the affection. On Hanukkah, we had to survive. You know why we had to survive the war? Because Hashem has promised us. Hashem promised that the Jewish people are going to survive. We will never be annihilated. We had to survive. But there's only one question. Did we survive because we had to? Or we survived because there's a special affection that the Jews have from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Which one is it? The answer is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows, here, I'll give you a little miracle that shows that it's affection. They didn't have to find that little Parsha. I mean, there were other halachic ways of lighting the menorah, even if everything was tameh. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu do this little, what they call, a little kiss from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Why? That's the sign of the affection. That's a sign that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, see, this is what I really think of you. And therefore on Hanukkah, that's why we celebrate we're celebrating the menorah, not because it's the more significant miracle. It's the miracle that indicates where we stand with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's like a wife, there are two ways that a wife will bake a blueberry pie for her husband. A husband can leave the house in the morning and he could say to his wife, oh, maybe tonight you can make me a blueberry pie, right? Okay, she'll make the blueberry pie. There's another one where the wife wants to surprise the husband. The husband leaves and the wife's going to bake him a blueberry pie. One of them, she'll bake the pie. She'll bake the pie, put the pie in there you go. There's another one where the wife bakes the pie, then she puts on a little whipped cream, and then a cherry, and then a chocolate chip, a little chocolate chip on top of the cherry, and builds and then a little lotus on top, right? And the wife, you puts on, that's special. That's already a sign of affection. That's already a sign of affection. There's what you have to do, and there's what you really want to do. That's the Pach Shemen. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is showing Yosef over here. That little gesture, sometimes it's a little gesture in life, that's really the biggest gesture of all. The little gesture of, take a whiff, Yosef. That's strange. Right. Don't think you've been abandoned. Don't think I've left you to fate. I'm with you. I'm with you. I just want you to know, everything that's happening needs to happen. But it's under my direct jurisdiction and supervision, so you have nothing to worry about. That's what the first would explain. Okay? All right.